Hello, my name is Christina Crosby. I'm currently an assistant professor at Mesa College in the Department of Psychology, and I am excited to share with you the outcomes of revising one of my assignments with equity in mind. So first, to just give you a general overview in terms of the course that I was redesigning. So I selected for this spring 22 semester my Psych 258 course, which is Behavioral Science Statistics, and I was revising the previous assignment being a final project. The final project was a kind of deep dive, putting together all of the work and knowledge and skills that the students have been building all semester and putting it together at the end to take a real deep dive into the statistical analyses for research. And so they would be provided with either a research background and research data already that they're essentially deep diving into. However, I wanted to revise this so that the deep dive was into research driven by what each individual student was interested in, rather than me just providing them a specific background and data that might be a research question that they are not particularly interested in, that might not fit their particular backgrounds and interests. So for this, to discuss just in terms of the general learning outcomes and objectives related to this assignment, for the outcomes, especially because it's kind of towards the end and it's this final project that's really pulling everything together that we've been working on and building skills on throughout the semester, it's important to just pull up the overall course learning outcomes for this course. And essentially, it involves building this critical thinking skill as it relates, particularly when we think of statistics about solving these problems that we might see in the different sciences, especially in the different behavioral sciences. So being able to critically think about those, reflect upon those, interpret those results, and also communicate that information to others via some type of report in the previous assignment, where it would be a written report. And then also making sure that they have this good overall awareness of the research methodology that they're deep diving into. So again, that past assignment really looking into this provided background in terms of understanding what methodology they use, being able to identify those different components and apply the correct statistical tools. And so we're going to continue this with the revised assignment, but now with a focus on what students might be interested in, that they're interpreting, critically thinking about, helping them get more involved in that project. So the specific objectives of the assignment would be for students to be able to generate their own novel two-variable behavioral science research question and associated hypotheses that they're going to analyze later. So instead of trying to figure out what was the research question in this background that you've been given, what are you actually interested in? What's a research question that you, the student, would be personally interested in trying to provide an answer for? So allowing them to generate their own hypothesis. And then being able to operationalize each of those variables that are in their research question and discuss the research methodology that would be involved for that specific kind of data collection, given how they operationalize their variables. Also being able to generate appropriate summary statistics, so knowing the correct way to report average, measures of variability, distributional shape, things of that nature. And then also being able to take that information and identify what is the correct statistical analysis that would apply given the research question, the research methodology, and the data collected as operationalized. And then being able to conduct and carry out that appropriate analysis as well. And then lastly, that last part, whenever we do any type of research study, is to be able to interpret those results and to be able to report it out to others. And so we wanted to maintain that in our course, of these being the overall objectives for this revised assignment. So how did it change when we were trying to think about it with equity in mind? Well, first, I just want to bring up this definition that we worked from as a group in terms of what makes something an equitable assignment. And the key focus, you can see I wanted to highlight some very specific components of this definition. And this is the fact that the assignment would integrate active learning. And so here I've now revised this assignment to, instead of being kind of passive and given data and given research questions, they're demonstrating that understanding by actually creating their own research question and collecting the data from one another as well. So much more active based when we look at that particular aspect. Also, building in variety. So instead of only the only option kind of being a written report of the results as they reported out and interpreted, it is still a key aspect of the course being able to write things up specifically in APA format for the behavioral sciences, but also there's other aspects that we commonly see behavioral science research presented in, such as, a blog post, a video, a podcast, so many different ways that they can present that end result in a way that is more connected with who they are and how they want to represent, how they would put out that kind of information. And then, of course, transparency as well, in terms of making sure that the steps were very clear in terms of what they were being asked along the way and how to do them, utilizing inclusive grading techniques and criteria. Additional to those, that kind of overview, equity-minded assignments, as we discussed in AEM, would also entail at least one of these other components as well. So I won't read the entire bulleted list to you, but essentially it's taking into account that people come from different backgrounds. And so they might address in a very creative way how to actually approach scientifically studying a very specific research question or the question that they ask. As we say, especially in any type of social science research, research can be cultural bound and cultural blind if one's not careful, in that it tends to focus from the lens of only a particular culture and wouldn't apply to everyone. So this gives us a chance to even talk about that element as part of our behavioral science study, of actually using our different cultural lenses to actually inform what it is we study and how we interpret and apply that information after a study. And so allowing students to really bring themselves into the research process here. So that played out with very specific modifications. So again, the original assignment was this final project where students were provided the research background and the data. Now, per the timeline that we were initially given for this, we wanted to have some kind of outcomes and for students to be working on it essentially by the end of March. And so because of this, it couldn't just be the time span left at the end of the semester that typically was allocated to this project. And so to accommodate that, the original project was broken up into segments to be submitted kind of along the way in the same order that you would typically work on a research project anyway. So first, instead of working on the whole project, really guiding them through, of beginning with identifying that research question of interest, identifying those variables, creating and crafting that hypothesis, then determining based on that what would be the proper summary statistics and all of those elements of really deconstructing everything along the way. And so a key other modification was that students are providing their own research question, and students would be able to actually collect their own data, in that we could create data collection within the course, and students can all serve as participants, which provide data to one another. So they're able to collect fresh live data to work with for the course. And then students were able to provide their own application of the data. So how they wanted to actually report out their interpretation and why that research would be considered important for all, why is importance of being studied. They could apply that in their own way. They could discuss that from their own perspectives. So that is the overall modifications for the assignment, and really excited about it. So let's reflect on how it went. So I'll focus on what was the key advantage, the key takeaway. The student engagement by changing this assignment and really emphasizing the fact that this was a project that they could do that was going to be fully about them and what they wanted to study, and really emphasizing as I worked with them that it's not necessarily fitting examples that I may have used in the course or examples they may have seen in the text. It's really, what question do you want to ask? And in this real focus of really being committed to them bringing themselves to the assignment, I saw such a variety in the research questions. And I know this is flashing because it's so many, and this is only a small sampling of it, right? It's not all of my students, but I could only fit so many on the slides. But it's really to show all of these, and I didn't want to just pick one or two, because all of these are completely different research questions. From time to time, it might be a similar variable, but they are very different research questions, which really shows the student engagement, that they really internalized it and wasn't just, let me complete this assignment, let me see if I can just find two variables. They really ran the gamut from things about student success to things about the human impact on wildlife to happenings within COVID to social media, all kinds of things. So great student engagement. The shortcoming was that because of the redesign with the timeline, I think it suffered a little bit for beginning so early in the semester. The reason I like to do this project towards the end is they're getting a lot of practice throughout the semester, and so being able to now create and craft your own research project tends to be much quicker and easier for students to do towards the end of the semester. And so I did see a lot of struggle, and it kind of conflicted with some of the initial learning of the concepts. And so because of this, I couldn't continue the project all the way through. It wouldn't have been an equitable assessment of where the students were and what they needed in order to still overall complete the course. However, I did still incorporate their interest by having all these lovely research questions broken down and using those in the problems and examples that were used throughout the semester. So still was able to take advantage of it this semester, even if we weren't able to follow it all the way through because of that timeline. And the reason why it was that one was my other courses this semester were late start classes that wouldn't have met that March deadline to already begin having input. And so in the future, I hope to continue this project because I really enjoyed seeing all of the student engagement that came along. And so I really want to revamp this project. I'll bring it back towards the end, but I'll maintain this equity lens and allow students to really take ownership of the project. And so just as a whole, I am grateful that I was able to be a part of assignments with equity in mind because it really allowed me the space to really make some of these changes that I had been wanting to make in one course in particular, but I already have ideas for other courses and what I want to do even in this same course in the future. So this was a fantastic experience, and it was really great really seeing students shine when really putting them first and foremost and allowing them to bring themselves to their assignment.